All right, we're in week 4 of finance, and I hope you had a great Labor Day weekend. I know I did. I'm out here on the back deck doing a little work right now, but I'm going to try not to work too hard. So a wrap-up of what we talked about last week. We looked at some common financial statements, such as balance sheets, income statements, and statements of cash flows. And these are just some common ways for us to see how businesses are doing at any moment in time and throughout the year. So in your financial exercise number 1, you looked at some of Nike's financial statements and interpreted them, figured out where to find some of the various pieces of information that you might need to know about how a company is doing financially. So I will be grading those this week. And this week I also posted a tutorial debriefing that assignment for you, so you can see my explanation of that assignment and kind of match it to your own thought processes and see how you did. So some comments on assignments that I have graded so far. We've had a couple of reaction assignments, and anytime I prompt you to explain something or discuss something, I expect you to be thorough and to include reasoning that's based on the stuff we're seeing in the textbook, those concepts that we're supposed to be learning. So I expect to see reasoning based on what's in the textbook. I expect you to use the terms and the concepts that were in the textbook. And you can't, when I say explain or discuss, you can't really do that in one sentence. So I'm looking for a little bit more substance as well. So that's just me kind of commenting on the way the reaction assignments are supposed to make you think, discuss, and show me what you've learned. So let's talk about this week. Week 4, we're talking about the concept of risk. So if you have ever borrowed money to buy a car or maybe some student loans, you have an interest rate that you have to pay. And that interest rate represents the risk that the bank is taking on in loaning you that money. It's the risk of you not paying back that money. So what we're looking at with risk in the sports world is we're looking at risk from the perspective of maybe financing a big facility. So building stadiums or renovating stadiums in sports is a pretty big deal financially. When a stadium is built, it takes a lot of effort and planning to borrow that money. It's a lot of money to borrow. And the concept of risk is a factor in how these projects are funded. So how much is borrowed, what the terms are, over how many years, and sometimes a stadium is paid for over 30 or more years. And so banks have to look at what the risk is in that stadium succeeding or failing or not even being around in 30 years. For example, the Braves Stadium is not even in use anymore, but they're still paying back the money that they borrowed from it. So that's taken into account with the concept of risk. So that's what we're looking at this week. So your readings and assignments this week, we are looking at Chapter 3 in your textbook. And I also gave you another reading, an article about the concept of an economic bubble. So we had a recession we had a recession maybe 8 years ago, and it's because housing prices just went so high, so fast, and they weren't really sustainable or based on solid market factors. And so we had a housing crash, an economic crash in the housing industry because we had a bubble. So it talks about the concept of an economic bubble in sports. So a lot of you have talked about the NBA and the NFL and how much money is involved in some of our pro sports leagues here in the United States. Is that a bubble? Do we have a bubble going on in that aspect of our sports world? So this article talks a little bit about whether the factors that support the economic boom of college sports and the TV deals and packages and the sponsorship packages and pro sports like the NFL, whether that is sustainable and are sports too big to fail. So it's an interesting article, and I hope you like it. You have a reaction assignment this week, so I look forward to seeing that. Like I said, I'll be grading your financial exercise number 1, and feel free to look at that tutorial that I posted. In fact, you should, because that's how you're going to learn. And see, that's how we're going to do some of those concepts together in that financial exercise. So I hope you had a great weekend. I hope you have a great week ahead, and I look forward to catching you on the flip side.